The final war. The stars were not what they once seemed to humanity. Long ago, they were merely points of light, distant and cold. But as Earth's technology advanced, so did their understanding of the universe. What had once been considered impossible was now at the cusp of humanity's grasp. The cosmos was no longer an unreachable void, it was a battleground. The war had been brewing for centuries. At first, it had seemed like nothing more than the natural progression of civilizations, an inevitable clash between growing empires and ancient powers. Humanity, with its ever-expanding reach, had been thrust into a galaxy filled with creatures and species beyond imagination. Some had welcomed them, others saw them as a threat. The first contact came as a surprise, not because it was unexpected, but because it was entirely different from what had been anticipated. The alien species, a race of intelligent beings known as the Tsar, appeared to humanity not with weapons or demands but with knowledge. They came not to conquer, but to share, to teach, and to guide. At least, that was their claim. The humans were skeptical, of course. How could they trust the motives of a race that could traverse the stars while they were still learning to send probes to Mars? But they listened, and over time, the knowledge they received from the Tsar allowed humanity to achieve things they had once only dreamed of: faster-than-light travel, powerful weapons, technologies that promised to change the very fabric of society. But the trust that had been forged between the humans and the Tsar began to crumble. Small things started to go wrong. Ships disappeared without a trace. Entire colonies went silent. And as the years passed, it became clear that not all was as it seemed. The Tsar had been hiding something. There were secrets buried deep in their history, dark truths that only a few knew. Humanity's curiosity had driven them to the stars, but now, they faced the greatest trial of their existence. It wasn't just the Tsar anymore, it was something far worse. Something they had unknowingly provoked. Something ancient. And now, it was coming for them. The war began not with a single battle but with a cascade of events, decisions made in the shadows, alliances forged in secrecy, and humanity's eventual realization that they were not alone in their fight. They had made enemies, not just of the Tsar but of an empire that had existed since the dawn of the galaxy. An empire that viewed humanity as a threat to their dominance. As the first wave of attacks hit Earth, there was no time for panic. No time to prepare. The sky darkened with the silhouettes of enemy ships. These were no ordinary invaders. They were beings of immense power, each more dangerous than the last. They struck swiftly and without mercy. It was then that humanity realized the truth: the war was not just for survival, but for the future of the galaxy itself. The enemy had come to cleanse the stars, to purge the galaxy of those who dared to challenge their rule. And humanity, once a fledgling species, was now standing at the precipice of extinction. The leaders of Earth, the military, and scientists worked tirelessly to decipher the nature of this new threat. But the enemy was unlike anything they had ever faced. Their weapons were beyond comprehension, their tactics far more brutal and efficient than anything humanity could have anticipated. Every defense was overwhelmed. Every strategy seemed futile. But humanity had something that the enemy did not understand: a fierce will to survive. They would not go quietly into the night. They would fight back. They would stand against the darkness. And as the first strikes landed on human cities, the battle lines were drawn. The final war had begun. The stakes were higher than ever before, and every moment counted. For humanity, this was not just a fight for survival, it was a fight for their place in the universe. A fight to prove that they were more than just a fleeting spark in the vastness of space. The humans fought with everything they had, using every bit of knowledge and technology at their disposal. They adapted quickly, learning from each encounter, each failed attempt. It was a war like no other, a war that would determine the future of the galaxy. The conflict escalated far quicker than anyone had expected. Earth's defenses, built to withstand natural disasters, were utterly ineffective against the alien onslaught. The first waves of invaders were not just attacking cities, they were striking at the very core of humanity's civilization. Satellites were disabled, communication networks fell silent, and power grids were knocked offline across the globe. At first, there was no central command or unified resistance. Different nations tried to fend for themselves, but it was clear that no single human force could stand against this advanced enemy. The world had been divided by borders, ideologies, and mistrust. Now, in the face of annihilation, all that mattered was survival. Alliances were quickly formed, and the United Earth Command, UEC, was born. The UEC was a collection of humanity's best minds, its most powerful military leaders, and its brightest scientists. They worked around the clock to understand the nature of the enemy and develop a counter-strategy. The knowledge from the Tsar, once seen as a blessing, was now viewed with suspicion. Could they have known more about the invaders than they let on? Had they withheld vital information? The answers were nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, the attacks continued. Entire cities were reduced to rubble in a matter of hours. The enemy showed no mercy, and humanity's military might seem impotent. Every time they thought they had gained an advantage, the enemy adapted, evolving faster than they could keep up. It was as if the invaders were studying them, learning their tactics, and exploiting every weakness. In the midst of this chaos, a breakthrough occurred. A small group of UEC scientists discovered an anomaly in the enemy's technology, a pattern, something that suggested they were not as invincible as they appeared. The invaders' power came from their ability to manipulate dark energy, a form of energy so potent and so dangerous that it was barely understood. The scientists realized that if they could tap into this energy themselves, they might be able to turn the tide of the war. But there was a catch. Dark energy was not something humanity could control. At least, not yet. The research was in its infancy, and experimenting with such volatile energy was risky at best. But the alternative was certain death. Humanity had no choice. They had to push forward. As the UEC assembled its top engineers and scientists to develop a weapon that could harness dark energy, the world outside continued to burn. Civilians were being evacuated to underground bunkers, refugees flooding into safe zones, and every available soldier was being drafted into the global war effort. The battle was no longer just in the skies, it was on the ground, in the hearts of every human fighting for their survival. The tide of the war began to shift, but not in the way anyone had expected. The Tsar, who had once been seen as humanity's allies, started to act suspiciously. There were reports of Tsar ships moving toward Earth's defenses, not in defense of humanity, but in preparation for something much darker. Were they preparing for a betrayal? Were they planning to join the invaders? The UEC sent out covert teams to investigate, but what they found was nothing short of horrifying. The Tsar had been in contact with the enemy long before the war had started. They were not simply trying to help humanity, they had been playing both sides. The Tsar had been trying to weaken humanity for centuries, seeing them as a rival race that needed to be subdued. This revelation sent shockwaves through Earth's leadership. How could humanity have been so blind? The Tsar were not allies, they were manipulators. But what did they want? Why had they allowed humanity to rise so far, only to turn on them now? The answers remained elusive. Humanity's resolve, however, did not falter. With the Tsar now exposed as enemies, Earth's military leadership gave orders to track down and eliminate any remaining Tsar collaborators. But the war had already taken a heavy toll on Earth's forces. Many soldiers, once hopeful of victory, now fought not just for survival but for revenge. As Earth's forces adapted to the new reality, the first truly devastating battle of the war took place. The UEC's new dark energy weapon, codenamed Solstice, was deployed for the first time. It was a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of ripping through the very fabric of space. Its creators had designed it to disrupt the dark energy manipulation used by the invaders, but no one knew if it would work. The battle was fierce. Earth's forces had gathered every available ship, every weapon, and every soldier to engage the enemy. The skies were filled with the sounds of explosions, the cries of soldiers fighting for their lives, and the roar of ships tearing through the atmosphere. And then, in the midst of the chaos, Solstice was fired. For a moment, there was nothing. A silence that enveloped everything. The very air seemed to still as the weapon unleashed its power. Then, the universe itself seemed to ripple. The invaders' ships began to falter. Their once unstoppable momentum slowed, and their once precise weapons began to misfire. For the first time since the war began, humanity had a fighting chance. The invaders, who had once appeared so invincible, were now on the defensive. Their ships, once impervious to human firepower, were now vulnerable. The tide of the war had begun to turn. Humanity was no longer just fighting for survival, they were fighting to reclaim their place in the galaxy. But even as Earth's forces celebrated their first victory, the question remained, was it enough? Had they truly discovered the key to defeating their enemies, or had they merely delayed the inevitable? The war was far from over, and the final battle still loomed on the horizon. The vast expanse of space. The human fleet, led by the vanguard, glides into position, preparing for the final assault. Around them, the dark Erebrian fleet looms, a terrifying collection of warships and battle stations. The tension is palpable. Narrator. As the two forces prepared for their fateful clash, the galaxy held its breath. For centuries, the Erebrians had dominated, their technological superiority unmatched. But humanity had learned from every battle, every defeat, every victory. The time had come to prove that even the greatest empires could fall. Inside the vanguard, the crew works with focused intensity. The bridge hums with activity as the final strategy is put into motion. Admiral, calmly, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. All ships, engage at maximum velocity. The first strike will be ours. No hesitation. The camera pans to the soldiers on board the vanguard, preparing for their roles in the operation. Commander Sarah is in the lead, her face stoic yet resolute. Commander Sarah, turning to her officers. This is it. We hold the line, and we take the fight to them. For Earth. For all of humanity. The sound of sirens blares as the fleet accelerates towards the enemy. The battle has begun. The first salvo of energy blasts from both sides lights up the dark sky. Narrator. The opening salvo was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Humanity's ingenuity had birthed weapons the Erebrians couldn't anticipate, faster, stronger, and more precise than anything the enemy had faced. The battle lines were drawn, and the fate of two civilizations rested on the outcome of this moment. Scene: a devastating exchange of fire between the two fleets. Alien ships explode in flashes of light, and human ships return fire with equal ferocity. But the Erebrians are relentless. Soldier, on the comms. Target locked. We're going in. All units, engage at will. Commander Sarah directs her forces expertly, moving them into position for a surprise counterattack against the Erebrian flagship. Narrator. But even as humanity's finest warriors pushed forward, the Erebrians revealed their true strength. From the depths of their ranks emerged a colossal ship, a war machine unlike anything the humans had ever encountered. Its weapons crackled with energy, and its massive hull radiated power. The human forces braced themselves for the attack. Admiral, through the comms. Prepare for impact. This is not over yet. The battle intensifies, and the human fleet is forced to regroup as the Erebrian flagship unleashes a barrage of devastating energy blasts. The vanguard takes a direct hit, shaking the entire ship. Narrator. In the face of overwhelming odds, the humans did not falter. Every man and woman aboard the vanguard knew that this battle was not just about survival. It was about securing their future, protecting the next generation, and showing the universe that humanity would never back down. Commander Sarah, bloodied but unbowed, leads a final assault on the flagship, determined to strike the blow that would turn the tide of the war. The camera opens on the battlefield, the air heavy with the aftermath of countless clashes. Broken ships and shattered weapons lay scattered across the war-torn ground. The silence is deafening, but it's broken by the sound of marching boots. Narrator, voiceover, in the wake of the great conflict, a fragile peace hung in the air. But peace was a fleeting dream in a war that had consumed so much. The human race, battered and scarred, had not yet fully recovered. Their resolve, however, was unshaken. Cut to General Rivas standing on a high platform, gazing at the horizon, where the enemy fleet has gathered. His face is grim, but there is a glint of hope in his eyes. General Rivas, they thought they could break us. But they underestimated the power of unity. The time for survival is over. It's time to fight back. The unlikely alliance. The camera shifts to a secret underground base, where Earth's most brilliant minds, along with alien allies, are working tirelessly on a new weapon that could turn the tide of war. Alien tech meets human ingenuity in a stunning display of cooperation. In the darkest hour, an unexpected alliance formed. Humans and aliens, once at odds, now stood side by side in a shared dream of victory. Together, they forged a weapon that could challenge the very essence of their enemy. Cut to Dr. Sarah, a human scientist, and Akir, an alien engineer, standing before a massive glowing device. Dr. Sarah, it's ready. With this, we can hit them where it hurts the most. Akir, the weapon's power is immense. But its success depends on us launching it at their core. We will need to infiltrate their command ship. The bold infiltration. Cut to a high-speed chase through a dense asteroid field. Human and alien ships dart between massive rock formations, evading enemy fire. With the new weapon in hand, the Alliance embarked on a daring mission: infiltrate the enemy's command ship and deliver the blow that would cripple their entire fleet. Inside the cockpit, Captain Zane, a fearless human pilot, grips the controls of his ship with intense focus. Captain Zane, we're almost there. Prepare for the jump to light speed. The camera shakes as the ships warp into hyperspace, arriving at the enemy's massive flagship. The heart of the beast. The enemy flagship is colossal, towering over the smaller ships. It bristles with weaponry, seemingly invincible. The enemy's flagship was the heart of their power, their symbol of invulnerability. It was here that the final battle would unfold, where humanity's fate would be decided. The camera zooms in on the enemy's main control room, where a cold, calculating alien leader, Zalak, watches the incoming ships with disdain. Zalak, they dare to challenge us. This will be their final mistake. As the human and alien ships engage in a fierce battle outside, a small group infiltrates the flagship's lower levels, dodging security systems. The final confrontation. The camera follows General Rivas and his team as they reach the heart of the flagship, where they encounter Zalak in a dramatic standoff. General Rivas, this is where it ends, Zalak. Your empire is over. Zalak sneers, his advanced weapon raised, ready to strike. Zalak, you cannot win. We are invincible. The scene is tense, the outcome uncertain as both sides prepare for the ultimate clash. In this moment, humanity's fate was not just determined by weapons, but by courage, unity, and the will to survive against impossible odds. Suddenly, the weapon created by the Alliance powers up, a brilliant beam of energy aimed at the heart of the enemy ship. The tides of war shift. The camera follows the beam of energy as it cuts through the enemy's defenses and strikes the core of the flagship. The entire ship begins to shudder, its systems failing one by one. With one final strike, the tide of the war shifted. The enemy's flagship was no more. The unstoppable force had been brought to its knees. Cut to the battlefield outside, where enemy ships begin to retreat, their once imposing fleet now in disarray. The price of victory. As the dust settles, the camera pans over the wreckage of both sides. The cost of the battle is evident, but victory is within reach. The war was far from over, but humanity had proven its strength. The price of victory was high, but it was a price worth paying for freedom. General Rivas looks to the horizon, his face both proud and somber. General Rivas, this is only the beginning. We will rebuild, and we will rise again.